A dark figure was standing in the doorway, watching me eat my dinner. I didn't know what to do, so I just kept eating, hoping that it would go away. But then the entity started moving towards me, and so I did something that I never thought I would do. It all started when I was taking out the trash. My apartment is in the basement of this old Victorian house. It's really cheap rent, but it's a little creepy. The walls are paper thin, the windows are boarded up, and there are cobwebs everywhere. But it's a great place for me because I work from home as a freelance writer, so I don't really need much else besides a place to sleep. I took out the trash into the basement, which is shared by all the apartments in the building. There are 4 other people living here, but I don't know anything about them. They keep to themselves, and I keep to mine. But the trash chute is in the basement, so we have to share this horrible, smelly stairwell every now and then. And that's when I heard it, a scream in the middle of the night. I looked around but couldn't see or hear anything. Then I shrugged and went back to bed. I live alone, so if someone else in the building was making noise, then that was their problem, not mine. And I went back to sleep without giving it another thought. But then the next night it happened again. This time it sounded like a woman screaming in pain. And then the night after that it happened yet again. It was always a different scream, but they were getting louder and more frequent. I tried to tell myself that it was just some crazy person in one of the other apartments, but I couldn't help but get a little scared. Then one day while I was cooking dinner, I heard what sounded like a blood-curdling scream followed by heavy footsteps in the apartment above me. I cautiously made my way to my front door and peered through the peephole. All I saw was a pair of feet walking away down the hallway. So I unlocked the door and went out to investigate. As I walked down the hallway, I could still hear the commotion above me. I wasn't sure if I should knock on the door, so I just continued down the hallway until I got to the end and turned off the lights. It was pitch black and I could hear whispers and screams coming from behind me. I tried to make out what they were saying, but it didn't sound like anything I'd ever heard before. I decided to go back to my apartment and lock the door. Once inside, I turned on all of the lights and pulled the blinds shut. As I sat down at my kitchen table to eat dinner, I had a strange feeling that I was being watched. I turned around and looked around the room, but there was nothing there. So I shook off the feeling and went back to eating my dinner. But then I saw it. In the corner of the room, between the table and the wall, was a dark figure. I blinked and it was still there. I thought that I was seeing things, so I got up from my chair and walked over to investigate. As I approached the corner, the figure began to move. It started to walk towards me. At this point, I was frozen in fear. I couldn't move or speak. I just stood there watching as the figure got closer and closer. It moved with an unnatural speed, gliding across the floor like it was on ice. It was now only a few feet away from me, and I could make out the shape of its body. It was hunched over with long, sharp teeth. It stopped in front of me and reached out a hand. Its fingers were long and bony and tipped with sharp claws. I screamed and tried to run, but it was too late. The creature grabbed onto my arm and pulled me towards it. I kicked and scratched at it, but its skin was cold and hard like stone. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get away. It dragged me towards the corner where it came from, and I knew that it was going to kill me. That's when I did something that I never thought I would do. I looked into its eyes. It was the only way I could think of to stop it from hurting me. Maybe if I could just stare into its soulless eyes long enough, it would get bored and let me go. But instead, it only seemed to make it angrier. It started to shake me violently, and then it opened its mouth wide and let out a deafening roar. I closed my eyes tight and waited for the pain to come. But it never did. Instead, I heard a loud crash, and then everything went silent. Cautiously, I opened one eye and then the other. The creature was gone, and in its place was a pair of black leather shoes. I slowly reached out and picked them up. They were size 13 and made of the finest leather. I slipped them on my feet and they fit perfectly. I don't know why I did what I did next. Maybe it was adrenaline or maybe it was stupidity, but I put on the creature's shoes and walked out into the hallway. As soon as I stepped out into the darkness, I heard footsteps behind me. They were heavy and slow, like the creature was following me. I ran down the hallway and turned towards my apartment, but then I stopped. I knew that whatever was out there was still following me, so I turned around and faced it. In the darkness, I could hear it breathing heavily, and then it spoke. Its voice was deep and raspy like gravel. "Who are you?" it asked. "Why have you taken my shoes?" I knew that I was in trouble, but I couldn't help myself. I lied and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." The creature let out a low growl and lunged at me. I screamed and ran, stumbling over my own feet as I made my way back to my apartment. I could hear it gaining on me, could feel its hot breath on my neck. I fumbled with my keys, but finally got inside and slammed the door shut. I leaned against the door, trying to catch my breath. I could hear it scratching at the door, trying to get inside. Then suddenly it stopped. I dared to open the peephole and saw the creature standing in the hallway. It was growling and snarling, but it wasn't trying to come inside anymore. I watched as it slowly backed away and disappeared down the hallway. I don't know how long I stayed there, but eventually the sounds of the creature grew fainter and fainter until I couldn't hear it anymore. Now, whenever I hear a scream in the middle of the night, I know that I'm not alone. And sometimes, when I'm lying in bed, I can feel the presence of the creature standing in the corner of my room, waiting for me to let my guard down so it can strike. And even though I know that it's just a figment of my imagination, I still get scared every time I hear it breathing heavily in the darkness. Because even though it may not be real, the fear that it brings is all too real.